Hey, you're listening to Marketing Out Loud, a daily podcast where I share advice, stories, and insights to help you build a thriving consulting or professional services practice. To subscribe to the show, head over to marketingoutloud.fm. I realized something today. I really miss writing. I haven't written in a serious way in a really long time. When I first started out, creating content and when I launched the business Boutique Growth years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago, I was predominantly writing. I had a weekly email newsletter. I wrote some blog posts, but I wrote pretty consistently on a weekly basis. And then as, I caught the new media bug, then I launched the podcast, and then I started doing video, and then I launched the other podcast, the one you're listening to now. And slowly but surely, I kind of stopped writing. And, I still write in the sense that, I script out videos and I make notes for my podcast episodes. But, frankly, even that, not so much anymore. So it's rare now that I sit down and actually pen, a proper post or a letter or a thought or an insight. I still do it consistently. Well, probably not as consistently as I'd like to, but fairly consistently for LinkedIn. But those are shorter form. That's, LinkedIn's 1,200 characters. It's not a very long form post. But today I got a couple of good questions in my inbox from a podcast listener, one of which I actually answered on the show in the previous episode about what if clients approach us and then go ahead and do the work on their own. And I thought it was a great question, and I wanted to just immediately put out an email to my list with the answer. So I wrote out the answer as if I was responding to this client. Or to this listener, rather. And, it ended up being a nice, I don't know how many words it was, probably about 500 to 800 words in that range. Nice little email, went out to my list. And, it was a good read. It's sometimes easier to scan and read something like that than it is to say it. Actually, especially in this case, where I had a number of different possible reasons why the client's facing this problem, or the listener, rather, and I delineated those in the email. It's easier to read that and scan that. And I enjoyed it. I find writing, let me put it this way. I find writing clarifies and sharpens my thinking, whereas speaking, it does that too, but speaking is more of I'm going to figure this out as I go kind of thing. And there's value in that. And you probably get the sense of that from listening to this show, is that I'm expressing things that are a little bit raw. And that's part of the appeal of this show, I think. Is that it's a little bit raw. It's not entirely polished. And I'm kind of figuring things out and sharing them with you along the way. But writing is very different in that I find it sharpens my thinking. So if I put an idea out and I write about it, by the time I'm done writing about it, I have a new perspective on it, or a more refined perspective on it than I did when I first started writing. And that's a valuable exercise. So the point of this is, the reason I wanted to share this with you is because I think you want to keep experimenting across different mediums of producing content and insights, because each one's going to give you something a little bit different, both you and the audience. So when you write something, you get something out of it, and the audience gets something out of it. When you produce a podcast episode or a video, you get something out of it, and the audience gets something out of it, and each one is unique, right? Text has a certain value to it, audio has a certain value to it, video has a certain value to it. I'm not saying you should go out and do all three on day one. That's not my recommendation whatsoever. And as you can see from me, I rarely do all three at the same time. I wrote for a while. I've been doing audio for a long time. I've started doing video as well. Now I'm doing a little bit more writing at the same time. But I'm also repurposing things, right? So the email I wrote, I put that in the podcast yesterday. And vice versa. I may write emails in the future that are based on a podcast episode. So it's all coming from the same pool of ideas. So it's not like I'm reinventing the wheel. It's all coming from the same pool of ideas, but I'm hitting different applications. And the point of this is just to share with you that, you got to find the medium that works for you. And that's going to come through experimentation. You might find that you get something out of text, something out of audio, something out of video, but you're not going to discover that until you try all three. So I'd really encourage you to just start experimenting and start to be a little bit introspective about this, and just think about, after you finish recording a podcast episode or writing an email or a blog post or recording a video, think about, in addition to what the audience got, which is paramount, obviously, but in addition to that, think about, what did you get out of the exercise? Like, how are you better, smarter? How is your thinking more refined? What have you extracted out of the process? Because that's an important question. Hey, thanks for listening. Do me a favor. If you like what you hear, go on iTunes and leave us a rating and a review, because it helps more people discover the show. Thanks so much.